I'm 75. I quit the rat race at 63, and here's what nobody tells you. The first 6 months were awful. I mean, truly awful. I felt guilty, lost, and completely useless. Everyone pats you on the back, they bring you a cake at the office, they tell you to enjoy your well-deserved rest. And you smile and nod, but inside, a quiet panic starts to build. For 40 years, my entire identity was wrapped up in my job. I was Ron the foreman. I solved problems. I managed a team. I had a place to be every morning at 6 a.m. and a reason to be tired at night. And then, one Monday, all of that was gone. The silence in the house was deafening. I'd see my neighbors leaving for work and feel this deep, gnawing shame like I was playing hooky from life itself. If you're feeling that way, or you're just scared you will, then this conversation is for us. Because nobody tells you that freedom at first feels a lot like being adrift in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. It's a scary, disorienting feeling, and you're not crazy for feeling it. So I want to talk about that today. This isn't going to be another video about financial planning or how to budget on a fixed income. There are plenty of people who can tell you about that. This is about the other side of it, the inside part. We're going to walk through the 3 stages of this escape that nobody prepares you for: the guilt, the healing, and the rediscovery. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm certainly not a guru. Speaking only for myself, I just think we spend so much time planning how to leave the job that we never plan for what happens to our own minds when we do. We've been trained for decades to believe that our value is tied to our productivity, that being busy is the same as being important. And when you step off that hamster wheel, you have to unlearn a lifetime of programming. Stick with me for a bit, and I'll just tell you what I found on the other side. You can make your own judgment from there. It might help you understand why that feeling in your gut is completely, and I mean completely, normal. So let's talk about that first stage, the one that blindsided me completely: the guilt. You spend your whole life dreaming about the day you don't have to set an alarm, the day you can just stop. But the truth is, the first thing you feel isn't relief, it's withdrawal, a deep, nagging sense that you're doing something wrong. For 40 years, my nervous system was wired for one thing: the sound of the alarm at 5:30, the taste of burnt coffee, the hum of the machines at the plant, the deadlines. Your body gets trained, you know. It's like being a circus animal. The bell rings, you jump. The whistle blows, you stop. Your entire sense of worth gets measured in hours worked and problems solved. So when you finally turn that machine off, the ghost of it just keeps running. You'll be sitting on your own porch, and you'll feel this phantom urgency, this feeling in your gut that you should be somewhere else, doing something important. Because the system we all came up in, it doesn't just take your time. It teaches you that rest is a sin. It teaches you that being still is the same as being worthless. And unlearning that, well, that's a fight nobody ever warns you about. I remember it so clearly. It was a Tuesday morning, maybe 3 weeks after I'd left the job for good. I woke up on my own, no alarm, and the sun was already streaming through the window. It was almost 8:30. My wife, she was already up and had the coffee going. And my very first feeling before anything else was pure panic. My heart started pounding in my chest, and I thought, I'm late for something. I'm in trouble. I threw the covers off and walked into the kitchen. And right then, I looked out the window and saw my neighbor Jim getting into his pickup truck to head to work. He gave a little wave, and I just stood there in my pajamas, watching him drive off. And this wave of shame just washed over me. It felt wrong. It felt almost criminal to be standing there, in my own home, while the rest of the world was out there, working, contributing, doing what they were supposed to do. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was accusatory. It felt like I was playing hooky from life itself. And that feeling, that deep-seated guilt, it followed me around like a shadow for months. And here's the thing it took me a long, long time to figure out. That feeling isn't a character flaw. It's not weakness, and it's certainly not laziness. It's a symptom. It's what I've come to call productivity withdrawal. You've spent a lifetime on a hamster wheel, running as fast as you can. When you step off, your legs are still trying to run. Your mind is still trying to run. You don't just leave a job, you have to detox from an entire way of thinking about yourself. You have to give your own soul time to decompress from decades of pressure. Everyone talks about financial freedom, but no one talks about this part. The part where you have to free your own mind from the idea that your value is tied to your exhaustion. You see, the first step is escaping the cage. That's the day you hand in your keys. But the real work, the hard work, is escaping the idea of the cage that you've been carrying around inside your own head for 40 years. And that takes a different kind of courage. It really does. And then comes the strangest part of all, the part that's even harder than the guilt. You have to reintroduce yourself to the person in the mirror. For 40 years, if someone asked you who you were, you had an answer, a simple, clean answer. I'm a foreman. I'm an accountant. I'm a line worker. It was a complete identity, a uniform you wore every single day. It told you where to go, what to do, and who to be. But when you take that uniform off for the last time, you're left standing there, and you realize you don't even know what's underneath. You start to wander around your own house like a ghost. You pick things up and put them down. You open the fridge and just stare into it. You're not just missing a job, you're missing a map for your own life. And the silence in the house, it starts asking you a question you haven't had to answer in decades. Now what? Who are you really when nobody is paying you to be somebody? I remember one afternoon I was just aimlessly opening closets looking for something to do, anything. In the back of the hall closet behind some old winter coats I saw it. My old fishing gear, covered in a thick layer of dust. I hadn't touched that tackle box in probably 20 years. I always said I had no time. I pulled it out and the smell of old plastic worms and stale lake water hit me. I ran my hand over the dusty top and I just stood there for a minute. On a whim, I took it down to the local lake. I didn't even care if I caught anything. I found a spot under an old oak tree, cast my line out into the water, and I just sat. For 3 hours I just sat there. I watched the dragonflies skim the surface of the water. I listened to the sound of the wind in the trees. I didn't think about deadlines or schedules or problems to solve. And after a while, a thought just sort of floated into my head, as gentle as the current in the lake. It said, "Oh, this is Ron. Not Ron the foreman, just Ron." And slowly, very slowly, things started to change. That big empty space of time that used to feel so terrifying, it started to fill up with, well, with life. Simple things. One morning, my wife and I decided to make pancakes from scratch, not from a box. We got the flour out, the eggs, the buttermilk. We made a mess in the kitchen. We laughed because my pancakes were all funny shapes. And we sat at our little kitchen table with the sun coming through the window, and we ate pancakes with too much syrup. Nobody was rushing. There was nowhere to be. The phone wasn't ringing. It was just us, and a quiet Tuesday morning, and a stack of badly shaped pancakes. And you know what? It was one of the best meals I've had in my entire life. It wasn't about the food, it was about the time. The time was finally soft. It wasn't this hard, rigid thing that pushed me around all day. It was mine. You see, this is the truth that's so hard to see when you're in the thick of it. You're not losing your identity. You're excavating it. You're digging through 40 years of rubble to find the person you left behind when the world told you that you had to be something else. It's not about finding a new hobby or staying busy. That's just putting another uniform on. It's about remembering what it feels like to just be, to sit by a lake, to make a mess in the kitchen, to have a conversation with your wife that isn't about what needs to get done tomorrow. This isn't a loss. It's an archaeological dig into your own soul. And it's the most important work you'll ever do. It's slow and it's quiet, and sometimes it's a little bit lonely. But the person you find at the end of it all, well, he's been waiting for you for a very, very long time. And this is where the big turn happens. Not just in your schedule, but inside your head. For my entire life, I believed a story. We all did. The story was that my job was my contribution, that my title was my identity, that being a good man meant being a good worker. And here's the truth I had to wrestle with sitting by that lake. That wasn't my identity. It was a costume. It was a uniform I rented for 40 years. It came with a script and a set of instructions, and I played the part so well that I forgot I was even wearing it. You know, we think we're building something permanent, something that belongs to us. But the company, the job, the career, it was never ours. We were just borrowing the name tag. The whole system is designed to make you confuse the uniform with the man underneath. It wants you to believe that without the name tag, you're nobody. And for a long time, I believed it. Because it's easier to be a foreman than it is to just be Ron. One has a rule book. The other is just open space. And look, if you believe that story right now, it is not your fault. I'm not judging you. I believed it with every bone in my body for 40 years. It's what our fathers believed, and their fathers before them. But what if that whole story was just a way to keep us running on the wheel? What if all that talk about loyalty and hard work and paying your dues was just a convenient way to get more out of us than they were putting in? Think about it. We spent our entire adult lives learning how to do, how to show up, how to perform, how to solve, how to produce. We got really, really good at it, but nobody ever taught us how to just be. What if your real job, the one that starts the day you walk out of that office for the last time, is to unlearn everything the first job taught you? What if your value isn't tied to your output? What if the whole point isn't to find a new way to be busy, but to finally get comfortable with being still? That's the real work. And it's the scariest and the best work you'll ever do. And so you just stop. You stop fighting the silence and you just let it be. And a funny thing happens when you do. The world doesn't end. The sky doesn't fall. Instead, the clock just starts to tick differently. The time that used to be your enemy, this thing that you were always running out of, it softens. It becomes your friend. The mornings are the first place you notice it. I get up now and I don't look at my phone. I make a pot of coffee, a real pot, and I can actually smell it brewing. My wife and I, we sit at the kitchen table. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. We just watch the birds at the feeder outside the window. Blue jays, cardinals. And I realize this is it. This is the thing I was working for all those years. Not a fancy car, not a trip around the world, just this. A quiet Tuesday morning with nowhere to be. The freedom isn't in doing something spectacular. The freedom is in not having to do anything at all. It's the permission to just sit, to just breathe, and to let the day unfold at its own pace, not at the pace the world demands of you. And that's when you learn the biggest lesson of all, the one that goes against everything you've ever been taught. You learn that simple is enough. It really is. For 40 years, the whole world is screaming at you that you need more. A bigger title, a bigger paycheck, a bigger house. You climb and you think the view will be better from the next rung on the ladder. But from where I'm sitting now, I can tell you the truth. The best view is right here, on the ground. It's the feeling of the sun on your face during an afternoon nap you take just because you can. It's the satisfaction of fixing a leaky faucet yourself because you finally have the time to figure it out. It's having a long lunch and not once looking at your watch. We were sold a bill of goods. We were told that happiness was a destination you had to earn through exhaustion. But it's not. Happiness is a quiet little town you just decide to move to. It's the relief of finally putting down a heavy bag you didn't even realize you were carrying. You didn't fail or give up. You just finally decided that you had done enough and that you were enough. And that, my friend, is a peace that no amount of money can ever buy. You know, you spend your whole life thinking the game is about getting ahead, about climbing that ladder. But you get to my age and you look back and you realize something. The whole point of the game was never for you to win. The point was to keep you playing, to keep you so busy running, so focused on the next step, that you never had a moment to look around and ask the most important question of all. Is this my life? Is this really it? The system isn't just after your 8 hours a day. It's after your attention. It's after your imagination. It wants you to believe that the world inside the office walls is the only world that matters. It wants you to forget the smell of rain on hot asphalt or the taste of coffee when you have nowhere to be. It's a system designed to shrink your world down to the size of your job description. And for a long, long time, I let it. I honestly thought that was all there was. I really did. And here's the most important thing I've learned. The one thing I wish I could go back and tell that younger version of myself. Quitting that life, stepping off that wheel, it didn't make me useless. It didn't make me lazy. It just made me human again. That's the simple truth of it. Being human isn't about being productive. It's about being present. It's about noticing the way the light changes in the afternoon. It's about having a conversation that doesn't have a point. It's about feeling the ache in your back after a morning in the garden and knowing it's a good kind of tired, not the soul-crushing exhaustion of a deadline you didn't care about. We were taught to confuse our economic value with our human value. And unlearning that is the greatest freedom there is. It's not about the money in the bank. It's about reclaiming the person you were before someone put a price tag on your time. And let me tell you, that person is worth finding. So when people ask me what I do all day, I don't have a good answer for them. Not one they'd understand anyway. I listen, I look, I sit, I walk. I spend a lot of time just undoing the damage, you know? Just letting the quiet seep back into the places that were noisy for so long. It's not an exciting life. There are no great adventures. There are no trophies to show for it. But it's a real life. It's my life. Finally. And I guess that's the long and short of it. The real work isn't earning a living. The real work is living the life you've earned. It's a quiet kind of victory, but let me tell you, it's the only one that really matters in the end. It's the only prize worth having after all those years of running. So we come back to that feeling from the beginning, that big, scary silence in the house when the alarm clock stops ringing for good. When I first felt it, I thought it was the sound of my own irrelevance, the sound of my life being over. But I was wrong. It took me a long time to understand what that quiet really was. It wasn't the sound of being useless. It was the sound of a machine finally powering down after 40 years of running too hot. It was the sound of my own mind finally having enough space to hear itself think. The real freedom isn't about not having a boss to answer to anymore. The real freedom is when you stop being your own toughest boss, when you stop demanding that every minute of your day be filled with something productive. The freedom is in the space between things. That's where you find the person you left behind all those years ago. And if you're sitting there right now listening to this and you feel that exhaustion deep in your bones, I want you to hear me. If you're scared to stop because you're afraid of what you'll find in that silence, I get it. I was there. I was terrified. But I'm just here to tell you, speaking only for myself, that you have permission to be tired. You're not lazy, you're not a quitter, and you're not failing. You're a human being who has been put through a system that asks for more than any human being has to give. That feeling in your gut isn't a sign you should work harder. It's a sign that your body and your soul are finally asking for a rest they have earned 1,000 times over. The first step is the hardest, I know. But the life that's waiting for you on the other side of that fear, well, it's quieter than you think, and a whole lot better. You're not alone in feeling this way, not by a long shot. One of the best things about this little corner of the world is seeing people connect with each other over this very thing. Take a look down in the comments section after this video. You'll see what I mean. You'll find stories from folks who are right where you are, and from others who are a little further down the road. They're all wrestling with the same questions. So if you feel up to it, I'd ask you to consider leaving a comment yourself. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just share one thing you're feeling right now. You never know who might read your words today and feel a little bit of relief, a little less isolated, just knowing someone else gets it. That's how we do this. We just remind each other that we're not crazy for feeling the way we do. It's a strange journey, learning to be free after a lifetime of being useful. It's not what they show you in the brochures, that's for sure. But it is a good journey. It's the most honest one I've ever been on. It's the journey back to yourself. And that's a trip worth taking, no matter how long it takes to get there. My name is Ron. You take care of yourself now. I'll see you on the next one.